Good afternoon, morning, Bitcoiners. One second, I gotta take the volume away. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. I don't want to hear myself, right? I had the thing on to see how the live chat was coming in. There you go. Who could complain? Not me. Not me. I can't complain. I think I can complain. You just missed the sunset again, but that's just predictable, right? We know what time the sun sets. If the sun sets exactly when we start, then so be it. Oh, we're forgetting our hat. There we go. There we go. We got to get our uniform on, right? We got to get our uniform on. Breakup gang. No way. Are we back? Familia Diaz. We're back. Breakup gang. We up. Hell yeah, Nolan. Sergio. 21 million in the house. So, everyone, what you're seeing are some YouTube comments. I re-added YouTube today. For those of you on YouTube, in case you were wondering, I've been broadcasting for a while on Rumble. I haven't been going on YouTube, but I'm having trouble with the chat getting Rumble into the new studio that I've been using. So we're just trying this out, but I'm going to read some of my beautiful comments coming in live from Rumble. Good morning, gang. Nice to be with all you again. JJ Fox says, Seaburger. Good morning, Bitcoin gang. Seaburger, fresh back from Disney. You made it home in time. I guess winter's coming to Disney this weekend. We're going to have some winter in Disney, apparently. Good morning from El Salvador. Hell Stew out in El Salvador. Good morning, Bitcoiners from Lance 2002. Guten Tag from Land XR 33. ES Empire. Good morning, everyone. Greg and Astis around. Good morning, globally decentralized Bitcoin meetup group. We love it. JJ Fox. Will Nolan expose the kayfabe on the world stage today? Dr. Alex, Dreamy, Pretty, Ilhan, the Badass, Omar, Gold and Silver, unbelievable orchestration. We're having a great time. Look at that crispy Dubai internet. Better today, maybe? Are we better today? I got a new internet connection today, so we're not tethering. Do you know that it was so I have, so you get the unlimited internet plan, right? And they say unlimited everywhere, but then you go to other countries and it's like 5 gigs and 10 gigs. But I get a pretty good deal when I come to Dubai. It's 15 gigs, which is not bad, right? So we got the 15 gigs, and I used 11 yesterday tethering, so I can't do that again. I had no idea it was going to 11 gigs for that shit quality. So I found a way to get a better signal today. I think it's going to work. So there you go. Oh man, no hat. I was digging the bedhead. Well, we'll do the bedhead for a bit. We'll go back to bedhead for a bit. We got the bedhead. Good morning, and Chatelet. Good morning, Bampians. Chat actively established. Jesus is King. Good morning, crew. Nolan. Well, I won't read that exactly, Jack2K, but that is water. Yes, you are seeing water. Yes. You are seeing water. Indeed, you are seeing water. So you have located me. So I'll leave it to the chat to figure it out. Where the sun be down, Chef Zero, but I can verify it was working. Looks great from my sorely limited, unlimited internet abroad. Greeting, Desert Nolan. Thank you, Sending Plane. Chef Zero, crisp and clear count. That's what we like to hear. So there you go. There you go, everyone. We are back. We are here. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to have to do this chat thing again today where I get the chat off the thing. I haven't been able to figure out how to get it to naturally come up the way I'd like. So for now, this is our system. And I just felt compelled. I took the show off of YouTube, or I did not relaunch the show. So for those of you who have missed it, I bet you there are some of you who don't catch Rumble at all, then you might not have known, but I've live with Roxham for over a year now, and we've been broadcasting exclusively on the Rumble platform, except for the rebroadcasts on Roxham's YouTube. But now I've decided today, just because I want to see the chat go, and I don't really feel the same worries about YouTube as I once did. Or anyway, if I get kicked off, who cares? Right? Let's just try it again. So there you go. They don't have a Bitcoin wallet or anything like that, so I don't feel like I'm going to be doing too much stuff over on YouTube. But I like the chat, and I like the live chat, and why not broadcast on both platforms? There you go. So for those of you who haven't seen in a year, Things are pretty much the same. We are going to start with the fake news. But first, let's acknowledge we have Sunrise Tech that is operational. Bitcoin's running 88,000 US trash tokens a Bitcoin as of this today morning where you are, evening where I am. Let's have a, not coffee in this case, but a drink and talk about what's new. Tommy DOU says, Nolan, breakup gang, where you been? I've been around, Tommy DOU. I've been around, mostly over on Rumble. We like Rumble. And so we've been mostly broadcasting exclusively on Rumble. But here we are. We opened up the YouTube channel again. It's my first broadcast on YouTube. Long time no see. People coming in. We love it. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, indeed. So we're all here. We love to see it. We love to hear it. We got more folks coming in on this one. Thank God for Rumble. What are we Awakeners at? 3 years? No, 4 years. Yeah, we're at 4. Yeah, the Breakup Gang is now the Awakeners Gang, by the way. We changed the name. And indeed, we got JJ Fox, Suntech, rockin' and rollin', Hopeportunity. Good morning, good evening, knowing sun is up in Florida. Phew. Welcome, YouTubers. All the news is here. Opportunity. All the news indeed. And it looks like we've broken the 88,000 US trash token threshold. And we're at 87,000 US trash token as of now. Well, I'm glad all you folks who haven't caught us on Rumble are around. I got to make sure I keep the chat live from Rumble. There we go. We got the Rumble chat live. So we're doing great. We're doing great. All right. We had our drink. We had our Suntech acknowledgement. We had our Bitcoin is running acknowledgement. Let's get into what the NPCs are hearing about. It's not going great, guys. They're having some trouble. The NPCs are just getting mogged every day. And here's what we got. Here is what they are hearing. Okay, I got this. There we go. Now we're good. We are good. Here we go. First up, this one's great. I like this one. We're going to be switching down to this. And then, oh, I see. Okay, I just learned something. Hold on. I got to stop sharing on this one. I don't know why. I always assume it just stays. And I'll share on this one. This should be a lot better. I think I figured out a problem or a solution to a problem. I don't think I can ever get rid of how it automatically sorts me at the start, but I got this. All right, guys, nearly a third of kids can't use books when starting school and try to swipe them like phones. It's not just kids. I've done that. Have you not done that? You ever been on your screen? I do it on my laptop all the time. I'll see a story and I'll start trying to swipe the laptop screen. I've done it to televisions. No one can read. It's not happening. We got this. Guys, bad news for Iraq. I thought Iraq was doing so great. I thought everything was great in Iraq, but it turns out, no. Not only are they suffering the consequences of the American invasion in the Iraq war, not only are they suffering the consequences of Saddam Hussein, not only are they suffering the consequences of the Iran-Iraq war, not only are they suffering whatever the consequences were of the ancient failure of Babylon, it turns out those are nothing compared to this. They're among the world's top 5 countries hit hardest by climate change because obviously before climate change, Iraq was awesome. It was awesome, guys. You can measure how bad Iraq has gotten from climate change. Iraq, it would have been perfect. It's just too hot. Too much climate change. Not enough recycling. That's what they needed in Iraq, guys. They needed a big recycling program. Everything would have been fine had they just sorted their plastic from their glass, from their cardboard, from their garbage. Had they just composted a little more, had they just had Elon Musk just sold more Teslas over in Iraq, it would be amazing. It would be perfect. It would not be one of the 5 worst countries hit by climate change, and everything would be fine. What a bummer for Iraq. Climate change. Greta. help, help Iraq next. Greta, they need you. We get this. The Dutch government, everyone, they've violated the human rights of people on these islands. They violated the human rights by failing to protect the Bonaire residents from climate change, a court has ruled. So this is quite a court. Could you imagine a court was able to both confirm the anthropomorphic origins of climate change? They were also to measure the actual human effect on climate change versus natural change. And then they were able to assess the damages to the people of Bonaire. That's some court. I wonder who's on the court. Who's the scientist? Who is it? What a court. They were able to do it. And then, obviously, just a simple question of whose human rights were violated from all of this treachery that went on that the court was clearly able to measure. And this is what we get. So sorry, Dutch government. You fucked the people of Bonaire. You owe money. Oh, no, this is bad too, guys. Just like I was saying about Iraq and, the poor people of Bonaire, we get this as well. Climate change has worsened the rains, floods, which killed dozens in South Africa. So obviously, South Africa, if it just wouldn't have rained, sometimes you hear about Africa needing rain, right? But no, there's a limit. They can only have so much. And then if they get too much rain, then people die. Okay. And then obviously we know right, what happens after that. The Dutch government is going to be responsible for this too. And who else is responsible? Who knows? Do you have a gas guzzling car? Well, I got bad news for you. This might be your problem. So we find out that, I just thought things were going so great in South Africa and all of Southern Africa, but I guess not. Most people think that places that are close to desertification could use a little rain, but there's a limit to how much they can actually absorb before they start dying of floods. And it's obviously the fault of the Dutch. So that's what we got. That's what's going on. Welcome, YouTubers, all the news. Oh, I saw those ones. Steve Jobs lives in us all. I try to enlarge things. Every day NPCs getting their souls crushed. What's left of it? Simulcasting both Rumble and YouTube. There you go. Forgive my exclamations, Nolan. Well, I'll let it pass this time. Climate change will always be there for the lizard people. They need more. So that's what's happening, guys. That's what's happening. And I got one more for you, a very special one. I have a special one. And thank God we have Bloomberg Business, everybody. I haven't been going to the Bloomberg well for my NPC news lately. And this reminds me why I need to. So, all those people out there, you Bitcoiners, for example, trying to escape debasement, right? You want to get out of debasement. You don't want to be always in debasement. You need the Bitcoin, right? Bloomberg has a better idea. The US dollar's drop has roiled markets, but a major Ontario pension fund said investors should explore the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen as a way to diversify. So Canadians are getting some top-notch advice. Guys, you're worried about debasement? Get some Swiss francs and, of course, the Japanese yen. They're not inflating those, right? So in case you fucking losers with your Bitcoin, look at Bloomberg Business. They have it figured out. You don't need no Bitcoin. If you're worried about the dollar roiling markets, get some yen. Yen. Yay. I need yen. We need yen, please. And Swiss francs. That'll do it. What do we got? 5 million people in Switzerland, right? They make cuckoo clocks over there and chocolate. It's a great market for cuckoo clocks and chocolate. And those are famously inflation insensitive. So that's how you get your store of value in the Swiss franc, right? You make sure the cuckoo clock market stays peak, right? You need that huge volume of cuckoo clocks running out of the country, and don't forget the chocolate, right? Which they do not source in their own country and have nothing to do with them really, other than they melt it down and create the delicious, delicious, delicious Swiss chocolate. So there you go. That's what we got from the NPC news. Now, the next story, I swear, is not NPC news. It's a real news story. It turns out Bananas and Rice, Nasra Ahmed, Bananas and Rice, was arrested, but she's got great healing powers. She's kind of like an X-Man. So her injury that she said she had last week when she was giving her great take on what being a Somali is, it's not Bananas and Rice if you didn't see it, but it is kind of actually Bananas and Rice. So she has been arrested for obstructing ICE operations and lied about being brutalized by ICE. Notice how the Band-Aid is gone and there's no wound. Loser. So there you go. So poor Bananas and Rice got arrested. So that was a good time had by all. A good time had by all. So the next story we're going to be covering, of course, is the pretty killing, the pretty good killings. And here you've got Cernovich. So it turns out some before footage. Now, my point always, of course, is you don't want to see Americans dying of any kind, right? So we're not laughing at the people being killed. We're not trivializing the ICE folks. However, we said from the beginning that you're involved in a much more complicated story than the Gestapo comic book version that you're getting from the legacy media. And it turns out that this fella was pretty unhinged. So, of course, we saw lots of news reports that he was so sweet and innocent. You've even got this one from Ana Navarro. He was the perfect guy. He was the perfect guy. This was the, of course, photoshopped version of him they're talking about. Because, if they Photoshop him, it doesn't matter. You can also make up his personality if you're at it. Who cares, right? He was so buff and had such a good square jaw. And he's the guy that you want to date your daughter. He's the man you want his son to be. They can't malign him because we have the videos. It turns out his parents have already maligned him as well. His parents have actually said, yeah, he was a little unhinged. But here's Cernovich asking us all to listen to the audio to just see, is this the guy you want your daughter to date?
Look at you! Pepper spray, bitch! Look at you, motherfucker! Look at you! Fuck you guys! Fucking trash! Fucking trash!
It's little lights out over there. So this was the back angle of the same shot. This one's pretty good. This is Elizabeth Warren giving her, what I love about all of this is that you always get to see the acting behind the Democrats, the bad theater. We're going to be talking about theater and theatrics for a lot today, but you get to see the theatrics, and they've always got to one-up each other with the drama. So they've always got to one person says a speech, oh, it's bad. You want your daughter to date him. You wanted him to be your son. He was such a perfect guy. And then, that's like the first couple of hours, but then they go on and then there's another one and another one, and they've got to keep the drama up. So all of these failed B actors that are politicians from the Fiat era are sitting there trying to get the acting quality, the amplification, the drama, the theatrics up. And this is a great take on Elizabeth Warren. She got right in the cycle. It's kind of perfect timing, and she really hit the high note. Couldn't cause harm. Patient. Calm. Steady. So steady. I was there. Oh, okay, it just repeats. It just repeats. So there you go. Look, don't. It's always a tragedy, of course. It's always a tragedy. I'm laughing at Elizabeth Warren, obviously, and the pickle the bad actors find themselves in when they leap to create these narratives and drama. And so, of course, here's Brett Weinstein with a really great take saying the narrative is breaking early this time, silver lining to a very dark cloud. Indeed, Michael Shermer admits here, yikes, even I fell for the narrative that Pretty was just a peaceful, caring nurse who went there to peacefully protest, direct traffic around the other peaceful protesters, and provide aid and comfort to others. No, he should not have been shot dead, but context matters. Indeed, indeed. And I think Michael Shermer expresses what I think a lot of people realized not long after, indeed. And the Bitcoin block says that nurse is a saint. Yeah, he's a full saint. There you go. There you go. So again, nobody wants to see anyone die. No audio aside from the mic? Really? Again? Okay, let me reshare that to make sure. Let me reshare so that I know what's going on. All right. Okay, let me know if you hear the audio this time.
Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure.
Audio on. Okay, yeah, good. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Okay, so we got it. So indeed, Brett Weinstein here, like I said, the narrative is breaking early this time. And that is, I think, one of the better takeaways out of all of this is that the narrative did break a lot faster this time than we've seen before. So that's what you want to see, right? You want to see the narrative break a little faster. You want to see the spell that the legacy media is able to conjure around people's opinions, the narrative formation that comes out of legacy media. You want to see that weakening in its ability to hold the trance. Because remember, for the Charlottesville hoax, for example, it took years. I mean, legitimately years to break the spell, because once it sinks in, it really can take off onto a life of its own. And indeed, you know, when you see these murders now, the sad thing is you can kind of imagine that they're now needing another one. I mean, good, the outrage lasted a couple days and then it kind of went down. Pretty, it's already over because of these videos. It's going to be a lot harder for Elizabeth Warren to record those videos. And so when you add up the inability to keep the actors working, the actors need material, the theater, politicians, all of those folks, the folks out there doing narrative theater need more of this. So I saw Greg Gutfeld tear one off Jessica Tarlov on the 5 about this exact point, saying, I think you even need another one now because you've squeezed all the juice you can out of these two murders, you know, or two murders, these two deaths. And if you don't get any more of them, then this is just going to go by the wayside and no one's going to care or no one's going to pay attention. And I think, as I mentioned yesterday, it's one of the reasons why you've seen the story become amplified by Joe Biden and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and all these people that came out, because people really don't care. And they're not caring like they did in 2020. The tricks aren't working. The narrative composition, the narrative uptake, the amount of people believing it just isn't where it's at as compared to 2022, because people can now perceive the architecture of deceit much more accurately than they could prior to Trump coming back, prior to Trump going through all that he went through the last election. And so now we have the narrative breaking early, which is really helpful for most people, right? Now, Greg Gutfeld also brings up an interesting point. And I wonder if there is going to be some litigation on sanctuary cities when it comes to this, because, of course, sanctuary cities, you know, there is a responsibility on the part of a municipality or a police department. To what extent does the responsibility exist? I'm not quite sure. But this is a pretty interesting legal conundrum. And Greg Gutfeld says what's missing in the video of Pretty spitting on an agent smashing SUV's brake lights, the police arresting him for unlawful acts like assault, not ICE, the police arresting him for these acts, which would have altered future events. His family will have quite a lawsuit against the city, the mayor, and the state. I'm not sure if you can win that lawsuit, but indeed, having that litigated in public and determining at what point are police officers or cities responsible for upholding laws? I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't know if you can easily come to an answer to what this is. I have no idea what the precedent would be and under what sort of conditions this would be litigated. Remember, I'm only trained in law. I only went to law school. I'm not really a lawyer, so this is a little beyond my my sort of 101 capacity in law. But from what I gather, you would at least get a pretty interesting legal precedent out of it. So maybe I like the idea and I like the framing because it does bring responsibility back in a configuration that we are not used to seeing, and I think it's great. But indeed, you still have the actors. I mean, they're out there still to calling it a revolution. Here's Breaking Bad star Giancarlo Esposito say it's time for a revolution. Says some people would die, but the rest of us would survive. They can't take us all down. If the whole world showed up in Washington, they'd kill 550 million. Do you think there's 50 million people willing to die? Is Esposito going to be one of them? The rest of us would survive, but we need actors, Giancarlo. If we don't have people wearing those glasses and that scarf and that hat, what have we really protected? Why should we keep going on if we can't have people that are dandy going to red carpet shows? Here's Vlad, hosts the best podcast. I'm going, cool, he should go first along with his friends. Viva la revolucion. I'm with you, Vlad. That's my opinion. What's stopping you? Come on, Giancarlo. You don't need to be an actor anymore. No one goes to the movies anymore. Just go protest. Be a full-time protester. We need it. We'll see how that goes. There you go. Now, indeed, like he said, though, we're in a revolution. And this note that went kind of viral the past few days, I had meant to bring it up yesterday in my notes, but didn't quite get to it. Let me see if I can actually... I feel like you guys need a bit more of a zoom in on this. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in a little for y'all. So, indeed, this is a tweet that went viral from Eric Schwalm, basically underlining the signatures, the earmarks of the deep state or the narrative formation cycle, the hypnotizers. And, I like to think of it in terms of magic because that's what I see with all these people that keep falling under the spell, falling under the conjuring. Again, that's why I wrote Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management from a magic point of view, because you can really tell that fiat has a kind of spell on people and it conjures some of the darkest magic you can possibly conceive of. And so this Eric Schwalm thing has gone viral. It says, retired Green Beret goes viral, warns America it's happening everywhere. More vets are joining the fight as they break down the network and foreign influence organizing the far left movement. Everything that states matches the actions of Shenna Bellows, Graham Plattner, and others in Maine as they set up the same insurgent systems that will be used for much more than ICE, indeed. And so we've also got this note here from Promethean Action. So have a look at the Promethean Action comment. And here, Promethean Action goes to the color revolutions. And it has a lot to do, I didn't understand. I definitely learned something about this from her, about what's going on in Minnesota. So here's the Minneapolis is a British destabilization operation, and she'll explain it here pretty quickly, and I think she does a great job.
That forced them to bring the war home. While the media gaslights you about out-of-control ICE agents, Vice President J.D. Vance put his finger squarely on the truth. He said, this level of engineered chaos is unique to Minneapolis. It is the direct consequence of far-left agitators working with local authorities. Engineered chaos, working with local authorities. Let that sink in. And here's one of those local authorities. Rachel Sayre, the EMS chief in Minneapolis, posted this attack on federal law enforcement.
My background is in international humanitarian response in conflict zones. In Yemen, Haiti, Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine. What I've seen here is what I've seen there. A powerful entity violently and intentionally terrorizing people.
Did you catch that? She just told you exactly who she is. Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Ukraine, pretty much everywhere the empire.
Wait a minute. I thought Iraq was global warming. What? excuse me, there was a color revolution in Iraq? What?
Has run a color revolution, she was involved. And during the Obama administration, she worked for USAID, the very institution that Donald Trump and Marco Rubio just shut down precisely because it was a hotbed of anti-American activity, funding the NGOs that helped flood illegal immigrants into this country. She's not comparing Minneapolis to a war zone to be dramatic. She's telling you that the same class of professionals who manage regime change operations abroad are now running operations in the Midwest. And Minneapolis isn't a random flashpoint. This is ground zero, the origin of George Floyd, BLM, and American Antifa itself. The first explicitly Antifa group in America was formed in Minneapolis in 1987.
I didn't know any of that.
Explicitly modeled on a British organization and designed to import European destabilization tactics onto American soil. A foreign pathogen introduced 40 years ago, nurtured by globalist money, now fully activated. This is an organic American protest. This is a professional regime change tactic deployed on American soil. So why Minneapolis? Why now? Because the empire has just lost its primary weapon. In recent weeks, the foreign policy mouthpieces of the Anglo-American establishment.
So she goes on to describe Lord Palmerston and how Lord Palmerston ran British foreign policy from the early 1800s to the mid to late 1800s, so basically just after the Civil War. And apparently he was constantly interested in preventing the American system of government from perpetuating around the world. And by that, I mean not the bankers that were running the drug money, that were doing the opium wars, that were creating the conditions to suck up all resources back to England, and that were exporting all kinds of debt and other facilities to control and manipulate different civilizations, particularly the ability to get sectarian and religious violence promoted and provoked. So when you see, and Palmerston, of course, all week was getting quoted. I guess the Canadian leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, mentioned Palmerston. Lots of people have been mentioning Palmerston in relation to what's going on right now. And so she underlines all those things. And he was the guy sort of in charge of all this. I didn't know any of this stuff. So big lesson in this week's Promethean action. Of course, after that, she ties this into money and finance, just as all Bitcoiners would recognize, of course, the incentives that created all of this brainwashing and theater stuff. So indeed, you can tell how this spell works. Here's one of the great examples. But this is what I've been talking about when it comes to World War II consensus ending. We can see the consensus mechanisms. We can see the narrative control. We see how it functions. But one of the issues of and weaknesses of the World War II consensus, or whatever you want to call it, for YouTubers who haven't been around, I'll share my framework that I've been using for World War II consensus in 1 second. It's a whiteboard. Now, if you're sensitive to swastikas, look away. But it's one that I created over the summer. The Rumble folks have been enjoying this whiteboard for a while, but I will share it with you now. And it was my attempt to explain the World War II consensus in Bitcoin terms. And it looks a little like this. And so this whiteboard here shows, more or less reality. This here, the World War II consensus, being money flowed into this projection of reality on good and bad. And of course, the Nazis were bad, right? That we can all agree. They're a fine stand-in for evil. We can all agree on that. And that all systems had to be about this frame of good and bad. And the World War II consensus used a kind of fake decentralization of institutions. So instead of a Hitler, you decentralize power. And, de Gaulle made this explicit for France. De Gaulle, when he took over France after, said that France was so easily conquered by the Nazis because of a lack of decentralization within institutions. So he created this decentralized institutional, audio on, yeah. He created this decentralized institutional way of limiting the sort of great men of history type trajectory that created Hitler in the first place. So reality in the World War II consensus were these institutions that were supposed to limit the potential of another Hitler or fascism. The problem is, of course, that the good side and the original sin of the good side was imbibing and welcoming the communists into the good side. Of course, the pact with Stalin and America made this explicit. The Soviets and the Russians and the communists were on the good team. And so what ends up happening is all of these institutions that were supposed to be the receptacles of the good also became completely saturated by communists. So my typical media, markets, institutions, national security apparatus. Evil was still Hitler. That's why anything that was not good in these institutions was expelled and still made evil. Evil was still Hitler, even though the forces of freedom from America that aided the communists in winning against the Nazis were started off on the good side, but by their very nature, because they weren't communist, became identified with the bad side. Now, the problem with and the weakness and what we're trying to exploit as Bitcoiners and why this is headed towards total and complete Bitcoiner victory and hyper-Bitcoinization is because the World War II consensus model, if you go back to the very concept of fault tolerance in Bitcoin, I mean, of course, we understand that the Nakamoto consensus is defined as a 51% fault tolerance of the network, a 51% attack, so a 49% fault tolerance. Bitcoin can handle 49% of the network not agreeing and still perpetuate forward. World War II consensus can't do that. If 20% of people in the 1960s went, I'm not going to work until I find out what the fuck happened with JFK, the entire system would have crumbled. So at a certain point, the systems have a fault tolerance. And it's sort of explicitly understood within these corrupt systems that if they don't have fault tolerance at that level, the whole thing fails, which is why you have one of these motivations to keep people in line and to keep that fault tolerance at the level that it's at. Now, you can already tell this is a crazy bitch just by her eyes. Doesn't take much to figure out this person's body language, that you're dealing with not someone full of opinions, but someone who is under the conjuring spells, the hypnosis that the World War II consensus and the orchestration of those institutions actually creates. So here you can see her. You don't need to hear what she's going on about. She's just telling everyone, if you follow any influencers, if you know
them, you're gonna see them anyway, but you don't need to give them your view. Shame is a very powerful tool, and I think we need to start implementing it on socials and start making people feel bad about not supporting marginalized communities.
Now, what this moronic uptalk girl is forgetting to tell you is that they already do it all the time. So she's not really saying that, but if she would stop moronic uptalking, she might realize that it's already going on all the time. And so one of the left's greatest strengths is their ability to keep everyone in line. Their neurotic need for social conformity, that's not there. That's everyone's neurotic need. What happens is the system, every individual does have a need for social conformity. It's just, some people less, some people more, but it's a normal human characteristic. It's very difficult to avoid. Not many can. Now, the difference is in Nakamoto consensus, just like the fault tolerance of Bitcoin, we can disagree and still move forward because we agree on Bitcoin. And you've seen that in Bitcoiner communities from the beginning. Bitcoiners like myself, who have been open Trump supporters since the minute Trump came on the scene in 2015, were never shunned in Bitcoin. We were never pushed to the side. Even if we had plenty of friends and colleagues who wanted nothing to do with Donald Trump, that was fine. No one tried to get you fired and kicked out of your job. And so Bitcoiners were already over 10 years ago demonstrating the kind of flexibility required, the kind of dexterity of mind and of association that both allowed different points of view in, but really accentuates exactly what Satoshi Nakamoto built, a 49% fault tolerance. We can disagree about almost everything and still move forward. Now, this used to be normal. This used to be everyone before the brainwashing machine really took off, before the World War II consensus had a kind of organic understanding, almost self-consciousness that it was under threat because the fault tolerance limit was being reached, and therefore conformity and getting more people under the spell became a priority. Before they really ratcheted up the brainwashing, which really started in the 2008 financial crisis. Remember, before 2008, You never saw racism really in the New York Times. It really was after the Occupy movement started and people noticed, wait a minute here, this is a lot of white people and a lot of black people and a lot of men and a lot of women and a lot of people from different social backgrounds coming together and saying, wait a minute, the fault tolerance was really being exposed. The limit to the system to perpetuate was already being exposed. And then bang, you get Obama going full race politics. You get whatever happened in 2012 with the election, which I don't buy. I don't buy the 2012 result at all. Mitt Romney was just too weak to do anything about it, which is why he had to fucking go. But I've never bought 2020 at all, 2012 at all, just like I didn't buy 2020, obviously. That was a much more obvious case of that. But here you go. This is the type of benefit they have with this social conformity, which really exists. But the good news is, right, they're getting sloppy, they're getting weak. Here's Dick Durbin today trying to perpetuate the execution narrative that Priddy was executed. Here's his image that he used from AI, obviously. The fella, one of the ICE agents, let me see if I can get a better view of it for you. He's missing his head. He doesn't even have a head, and he actually put this on the floor. Now, of course, the low information folks are going to buy it, right? Because you really are dealing with some low information people. Oh, I just zoomed out. Zoom in. Oh, that's not working. Never mind. So don't know why it's not working. But anyway, you can see there's an ICE agent right here. He's missing his head. And you can see it. And so none of this was real. Like, this is not how he was killed. So I can't believe it, but it's real. Senator Dick Durbin actually used the fake AI image from Minnesota on the Senate floor. Did no one notice the alleged ICE officer is missing his head? No one noticed. No one noticed, indeed. But what we can see is that the prediction that I made and that many others made, like Balaji a couple of years ago, is that you're not in the right and left anymore with these color revolutions and with the World War II consensus model breaking, with the institutional model, the credentialist model, the universities, the all the pieces that go into it, the legacy media that perpetuate this hypnosis and the spell casting. As that breaks, as that falls apart, and you realize that the Nakamoto consensus, the much more dexterous, much more fault-tolerant model that can make room for multiple points of view while simultaneously offering us a financial system that will cultivate energetic growth, that will cultivate building and not just financial extraction and the looting that went on under the scenes behind the scenes while everyone was hypnotized. You can see that the shift from left and right, the fake prison of two ideas that existed in politics, the fake binary choices between red and blue are melting away. And that's being replaced by a much simpler formula of populism versus communism. And we're redefining what bad and good are within our mental models as well. Not that we all have to come to consensus, but we're redefining it from Nazism and the good to something more like communism versus populism, something more like top-down government control versus bottom-up populism. So we're seeing this trend, and Cernovich puts it really adeptly here and says, this will be the biggest, so it starts with the Dutch unrealized tax, which got community noted because it's just a bill proposal right now, and it's not a passed law, so it got community noted. But Cernovich says this will be the biggest political trend in the coming years. You either vote MAGA or you have to sell your crypto to fund Somalia welfare fraud. There is no moderate position. Look at what they're doing in Virginia. Let you get MAGA or you get a Luigi. And that's just the truth. That is the psychological and economic war that World War III is. And it's creating a very obvious battlefront now. That's the good news, is we were in the fog of war so long after the financial crisis that not many people knew we were in a World War III situation already. I've been saying it's World War III since at least the coming of Trump. And so I've been talking about World War III explicitly and openly since at least 2015, 2016, saying the whole time it's not a hot war. It's a psychological and economic war. And here we are years later, very clearly in the middle of World War III, very clearly in the middle of a color revolution. Now, as longtime viewers know, America invented the color revolutions. So you reap what you sow. Of course, we've known that for some time. We've understood for a long time that we reap what we sow, and that's just part of the deal on life. That's part of the cosmic balance of everything. So, you know, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. So there you go. We've got this Cernovich quote, which I really like, and it's a good way of understanding it. And you can see this World War III happen and break out everywhere. You can see Cernovich mentioning it, but Mishkin here says communism accelerating all at once globally. There is less pretending or denial now. The fraud schemes, the wealth confiscation, the importing of votes, the permanent underclass as wards of the state, it's all expressly part of the platform now. So that's the good news. And like we saw that the narrative spell, like Brett Weinstein said, is breaking quickly this time. At least we're also seeing the fault lines and the battlefront very clearly now, and that's big news. And you're seeing it across the world. We saw Keir Starmer head out to China. He's there now. Of course, he's out in China, and he's making all kinds of deals about who can spy on who. He's letting all kinds of, this is the same deal Mark Carney got for Canada last week. So he's going to facilitate Chinese media and communications in his own country, i.e. he's going to let the Chinese brainwashers come in and participate. I don't know why this is. One second, I have an audio that's just a second. I don't know why, but a Greg Gutfeld clip just started playing. So anyway, I took care of it. So indeed, you've got this Keir Starmer going over there. And if you put this in the context of what we just heard from Promethean Action, this explains exactly what's going on. If it is truly this banking cabal that divided and conquered and hypnotized and created these projections of reality and were able to run the world in this way for centuries now, if you buy that frame and that America's peeling itself off of that frame, then everything that Keir Starmer and Mark Carney did in the past 2 weeks fit. You don't have to hallucinate or fill in the blanks or force some event into context. It all fits neatly and tidily. Now, it doesn't mean it's true. It fits her narrative, and I happen to think her narrative is able to explain what's going on in the world minus hallucinations, which is a good clue that it's closer to real, because you don't have to hallucinate what's going on. And so indeed, we get more with Keir Starmer, because just as he's signing all of these pacts with China about letting Chinese media in their country, just as he's signing all these pacts about real ID and age verification for using the internet, at the same time, Trump goes after him and says major defeat for Keir Starmer. Regulating U.S. firms with Ofcom will be blocked by Trump administration and U.S. Congress. This could lead to major tariffs on UK if Keir Starmer tries to block access to websites. The USA are defending the freedom of British people. Thank you. Because indeed, we are in a psychological and economic war. If they're going to let Chinese censors into their country, if they're going to let Chinese spell makers, Chinese hypnotizers into the UK, but not let Elon Musk, they're clearly telling you what side of the fault lines they're on. They're clearly telling you what side of the war, which of the belligerents they are a part of. And Trump going after them in this way at this time, just as they sign this deal with China, is not only perfectly timed, but it's also hilarious. You can thank the great Bitcoiner Preston Byrne for a lot of this. Preston Byrne has been, he's both a British and American citizen. He's been talking about the threat to the United States from the British for a long time, also laughing at it because of how pathetic and weak the British people are and the British institutions are. I don't mean the average Brit, I mean British institutions. And so when you see him really lean into First Amendment protections for Americans, American companies, and the inability of the UK to go and block American companies. You start to see how all of this stuff is shaking out. And indeed, great news from Trump, and it fits into this whole story. Now, because Trump is threatening this old world order, this banking cabal that's been around for a while, this story also fits. Apparently, Denmark, because of the Greenland thing. Now, we heard this as fake news last week because this was laughably stupid, but apparently Denmark is going to sell US debt. They're going to sell the US T-bills. A Danish pension fund plans to sell its entire 100 million US trash tokens. Oh no, we won't get Greenland with 100 million of our fake debt being sold for us. Don't do that, Denmark. We'll never recover. You have to hold our 100 million US trash tokens forever. Please help us. We're going to fail. We're going to have to shut down Starlink. We're going to have to shut down all of the internet. We're not going to be able to. We're not going to be able to have. We're not going to be able to have our spaceships anymore. Elon Musk is going to be bankrupt. This is what they're going with. The fund said the decision was driven by concerns over the U.S. credit rating, but also acknowledged the dispute over Greenland made the move easier. So indeed, you get these guys going after it, which is my prediction that the reason why you have Trump weaponizing the US dollar. Remember what my number one prediction of 2025 was? I say it all the time. It was the subordination of the Federal Reserve to Besant. It was the reestablishment of the constitutional republic at the basics of finance, getting the bank cartel away from being close to the economic engine of the public side of the government. Of course, the economic engine of America is private industry, but how do you keep the government from infringing on private industry? Well, you keep the civilians in control of the budget, of the money, and you keep not of all the money. You make money a free market. You can have Bitcoin, you can have anything, but you at least make government debt inside and actionable inside of the government. So the government has to live within its means, not use the bank cartel in order to perpetuate its own nefarious, selfish interests, which is to create the hypnotizing machines and the brainwashing and the narrative control. So when you see Denmark doing this, it's the reason why the United States needed to subordinate the Federal Reserve, because there was very little America could do if America tried to pull this move. And then you had Denmark pulling out, because the World War II consensus was all about everyone can have their own fiat Ponzi. Those fiat Ponzis have one condition. They plug into the American Ponzi, in that your central bank, your pension funds have to buy US T-bills. That was the pay-to-play nature of the World War II consensus. Everyone, because of the petrodollar and the way the US dollar reigned supreme in the 20th century, they basically just created a short list of customers, pension funds and the central banks. What happened with the stablecoin, and the biggest story of 2026 when it comes to this, was the crypto council that Trump held right when he took office in the White House, where who wasn't invited was the big story. The Federal Reserve was not invited. The FDIC was not invited. Any Federal Reserve regulators were not invited. The only folks invited were the private industry and Treasury, with Besant and a couple other executive branch members like Kelly Loeffler, who had the Bitcoin startup backed. And so what you ended up having was this clear change, right? That's what the Federal Reserve changed. It changed the composition and job of the Treasury Secretary. It changed the job of distribution of US debt. It changed the job and motivation of the distribution of US debt. So by putting it back into the Treasury, you've reestablished civilian control over this aspect of the economy. And by that, I mean, you've created a feedback loop now where popular enfranchisement voting can start having an effect on how the system works. But the added benefit is you no longer need this coordination between our bank cartel and the other fiat Ponzis that are running in the world. What you end up getting is a dollarization of the world, because now, instead of coordinating with one central bank, what the United States is likely going to do is, indeed, this is why you're seeing the banks beg for interest rates so that the interest rates can't be paid on stablecoins domestically. The compromise, I think the crypto companies are going to get, like Coinbase and the other ones issuing the stablecoins like Tether, is they're going to be able to offer yield to foreigners. I think you're going to see a USDT style attack on Denmark. Now, Denmark is a good case because they don't use the euro. They use whatever their fucking krona is or something like that. So what you can do here is start offering like 10% interest on US dollar deposits for all the Danish people, while what's her slut from what's her name again? The European Central Bank, whatever, that stupid broad. The one who goes on about, you know, she doesn't even agree with Carney about stuff. I can't remember her name now. Lagarde. So Lagarde, it's nighttime for me. It's not the same at night as it is in the morning. I have less recall, I guess you could say. So Lagarde, right? She goes on about, you know, all this stuff. Now von der Leyen is the the EU. I'm talking about the bank, the Euro bank. So what you can end up getting here is she's not going to be able to put up interest rates on the euro. So because there's no euro, interest rates going up, if Americans subsidize foreign holders of US trash tokens abroad, then they can offer 10%. What are there, 10 million people in all of Denmark? Imagine you get 10% interest on your US trash tokens and you get like 1 on a krona. And what are they going to do? So I think you're going to start to see, if these guys keep it up, if they keep getting uppity like this, I think you're going to start to see mobilization. Canada's going to get this first. But you're going to start to see the weaponization of the US dollar abroad, because that's the narrative here, is the World War II consensus, the unspoken part of it, the Keynesian part of it, was everyone can run their own Ponzi, everyone can run their public accounts hot, we'll just keep printing, don't worry about it. As long as you plug it into the Ponzi number 1, which is the US dollar, the main artifice of this whole system, then that's what you're going to get. So what ended up happening is the system can't sustain any more of it. And we're seeing it, right? The theater that was paid for by all this money printing is finally also coming apart. In the funniest way, obviously. Yesterday, you had Powell saying that Lisa Cook, the one with all the mortgage stuff, right, that would be the most consequential legal threat in the Fed's history. So someone who's clearly not above the law did all this mortgage fraud, and Trump's been saying she should be kicked out, she should be in jail. Now, it's obviously very political, but what's so funny is watching Powell try to play this as like an independence thing, as if the Fed is already independent. But of course, that's not true. There's more to it. Powell gave his public statements yesterday. He's also under indictment, right? Fed Powell defends central bank independence. It's an institutional arrangement that has served people well. We're doing great. Guys, we're doing great. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We got all kinds of people all across the world complaining, fighting, miserable, mentally ill. Canada's number 5 cause of death is suicide. We're doing great. There's a big success story because it's so independent. It's great, right? And he says that it served people well, and that is to have a separation and not have a direct elected official control over the setting of monetary policy. The good news is with bimetallism, you don't need anything like that, right? You can have apolitical money and political money. So it's just absolutely perfect. We love it. And that's why none of this is going to go through, right? Now, it gets even funnier. So yesterday in his statements, he comes in and says, it's data-driven caution, guys. It's I don't want to raise it. I don't want to lower interest rates. Data-driven, guys, right? Data-driven caution, right? Data is so credible, right? All the data in the world, like we're just so good at data, right? It's just a human's best thing is data. Aren't we great at data collecting? We're so good at it, right? We can't even do baseball data anymore. We can't even do baseball. It's all fake. Baseball. Who knows? Chair Powell emphasized data-driven caution. Okay, Chair Powell. Of course, it's non-independent. But the good news is Powell, just like I showed Carney yesterday, trying to show you a graph, right? The best news about all of these central bankers is they're terrible persuaders. It's like when, imagine you played a video game your whole life with the cheat codes on, and then you actually had to do the job. So the Federal Reserve is a big part of the whole narrative control. Money controls the projection of reality. It controls how narratives are formed. Now, because Jerome Powell didn't have to do much besides set it and forget it, he had all of these institutions, everything I showed you in that World War II consensus model, because he had all of these systems in place. We didn't really demand huge quality of communication on the part of the central bankers. So that's why Mark Carney has about a 0 charisma. That's why Jerome Powell is probably less persuasive than a handicapped donkey. It's not like he's moving the needle. And persuasion is everything in this game, because this is a battle, like I said, of hearts and minds. It's a battle of incentives. It's a battle of psychological warfare. And so the good news is, when he's reading his press conference thing, right, he says the U.S. economy expanded at a solid pace last year and is coming into 2026 on a firm footing. While job gains have remained low and unemployment rate has shown some signs of stabilization, and inflation remains somewhat elevated, in support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave policy rates unchanged. And here he says, clear as mud. Powell's explanation of why interest rate in the U.S. must stay higher than every country in Europe reads like a DNC propaganda talking points cheat sheet. And that's exactly it. You can see clearly now, because of how terrible these people are at persuading. Remember what Trump did to him. That was the greatest Trump theater of 2025, when he brought him to the building with the hard hats and the glasses, and he's patting him on the back and smacking him around. That was persuasion. That was clearly setting the stage. Powell just lacks all ability to do anything like that. Even that press conference he gave, where he was cleaning his mouth, and the Fed is independent, the speech he gave 2 weeks ago. So the good news is they're not really good at it. And because they're not good at it, we'll see that this whole, Powell thing is quite, it's just weak, right? And so here's a great Bitcoiner, Stanley Druckenmiller, talking exactly about that. And honestly, so Fed Powell could get away with this. He could get away with his 0 persuasion ability if they actually achieved some kind of financial benefit to the whole country, and if they actually did manage to stay neutral. But they never did any such thing. And so Druckenmiller, a great Bitcoiner here, describing exactly why the Federal Reserve ultimately has failed and cannot possibly get success going forward, and why it will be wound down and turned into just a food stamp operator when the U.S. trash token goes explicitly political, explicitly for policy, explicitly for consumption, explicitly to keep all of these mentally ill people you see crying about Minneapolis alive, because the system is about to go into the real economy, into creating energy, Bitcoin, and everything else that healthy, successful people operating on a Nakamoto consensus are going to want to rebuild the world out of. So Druckenmiller here talking about how, look, if the Federal Reserve just did the least amount, they would still have persuasion. They would still be capable of fulfilling their fake mandate, but they even couldn't do that right. So not only does he have no persuasion skills, and he's up against the greatest persuader in the history of persuasion, the Michael Jordan of persuasion in Trump, he also doesn't have the financial incentives to make this thing work.
I don't take the nefarious view that Powell is doing it for quote-unquote political reasons. I do think he's obsessed with the soft landing, and I think he's obsessed with his legacy and having made the mistake he made in 21. And he's being egged on by other economists in the press. To me, the Fed's job is to avoid the big mistakes, like the 70s, like the great financial crisis, like the big inflation we just had. But all this fine-tuning and worrying about a soft landing, that is not the job of the Fed, in my opinion. It's to maximize employment for the long term, not for the next 3 months or the next 4 months. But I think the Fed's obsession with nailing this so-called soft landing, I would remind everybody that the reason we're having a landing is because they let inflation go from 2 to 9%.
Yeah.
So there was no need for a landing for 20 years. But I think that's what they're obsessed with. I don't know.
How much of a problem is the forward guidance?
It's a huge problem. My friend Jim Grant says they're forward guidance dependent, not data dependent. It's a problem because once you do forward guidance, you eliminate your optionality.
Yeah.
And I think, Nikolai, you and I being in this business, we know we have to change our mind when we're wrong.
Yeah.
This Fed has shown over and over again that they think if they change their mind, they're losing credibility. So it makes them have their hands tied behind their back. I'm wrong all the time. I think my record is mainly because when I'm wrong, I change my mind. Not that I'm always right. I'm certainly not. Forward guidance.
So that's, he's telling you all about what I'm talking about Nakamoto consensus, the dexterity of your thoughts, the dexterity of your mind. I'm back. Little hotel issues. Hotel internet should still be good, though. It just fell off again. So thanks for your patience, folks, while we travel here. Let me see what that did to my chat. Chat's still there. Oh, there we go. Hello, Tasty Scat. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. So we got this really great Sightbringer post on this too. He says, this is the internal indictment of a regime pretending it still controls the plane while wings fall off mid-flight. Powell didn't engineer a soft landing. He created the conditions that made a landing necessary. The Fed ignored exploding fiscal stimulus, dismissed early inflation signals, and kept rates pinned for political cover deep into the asset bubble. Then it over-tightened into a supply shock, triggering a fractured market structure held together only by reverse repos and liquidity smoke. What Bitcoiner's been telling you for a long time, the reverse repo was, we had it plugged in at CoinDesk in 2019 because that was easy content for us. That was quantitative easing that could pump Bitcoin. Let's go. We were right on top of it. If we had anything like a real media, CoinDesk would have won Pulitzers back in 2019 for calling the print of 2020. We said, I don't know, something's got to happen in the next year. Otherwise, the whole shit's going to go belly up. It's done. It's finished. And they laughed. Oh, you Bitcoiners, you're so stupid. It's technical. It's technical. Joe Weisenthal and all these people. And now look where we're at, right? The credibility Powell defends on isn't monetary. It's theatrical. It's exactly what I've been saying. In the world of fiat, you need this theater. You need all of the spectacle. You need all of that to persuade. It's the only way. You can only do it with this World War II consensus theatrics. And that's why everything now is a game of persuasion. That's why it is Trump's persuasion against Powell's persuasion. That's why it is now populism versus communism, because we're into narrative projection, we're into reality projection, and whoever can conjure the best reality will win. And whoever can incentivize people to believe in their system will win. People are selfish. They want to win. They don't want to be on the side of Pretty and then he lied to you and then he's actually a scumbag, and they don't want to be on that side, right? They want to be on the side that is good. We all want to be on the good side. Even the people cheering on all the stuff in Minneapolis, of course, want to be on the good side. Of course they do. But how do you know you're on the good side in the end? Well, part of it is health and wealth and these other things. The Fed was never built to solve the cycle. Its toolkit is designed for an industrial age economy with fiscal restraint, coherent labor markets, and energy independence. And now governs a post-industrial, debt-soaked empire with fractured demographics, offshored supply chains, weaponized dollar flows, and bifurcating global collateral regimes. Powell knows this. His job is no longer to manage inflation. His job is to manage belief in control. That belief is crumbling. This is about the final act of the central bank era. The soft landing myth was never about avoiding a crash. It was about giving the illusion of navigation during systemic descent. Druckenmiller's critique cuts because it names the pattern directly. A Fed that refused to admit its role in generating the boom, then claims heroism for managing the bust it manufactured. The next phase isn't about whether Powell cuts or not. It's about whether the Fed can still pretend to steer a system whose core mechanics no longer obey the lever it pulls. The era of soft landing is over. The era of structural disintegration, narrative theater, and collateral realignment has begun, which is exactly what instituting Nakamoto consensus, energy narratives, sovereign money, separating money and state is all about. That's why Trump is out there selling it. So while all this is going on, what is Trump doing? He's out there selling these new Trump plans where you get money when you're newborn and you save it, you invest it in the market. Not only is Trump out there selling this American dream of wealth,
to celebrate a thrilling new milestone for America, the first generation of Trump account children. Trump account children. For the first time ever, we're going to give every newborn American child a financial stake in the future, head start at life, and a fair shot at the American dream, something people don't talk about so much, at least not for the last 4 years they haven't been, but now they're talking about it big this last period of time. It's been unbelievable. You see what's going on with our economy, the tremendous investments that's been made in our country. We have over $18 trillion coming in. The most, I think, was 3. That was 10 years ago, another country, not even our country. We have $18 trillion, and we have thousands of businesses being built all over the country and hundreds of massive plants so big.
So this is the real American system. And it's not just, you'll say, okay, he's giving some US trash tokens to kids. Well, it gets better than that, because just because of this momentum and narrative and projection, you've also got Brian Armstrong saying they'll match 1,000 US trash tokens for Trump accounts. He says, hopefully we can pay in Bitcoin. So Trump is already orchestrating like I gave my kids Bitcoin. We all did, right? That's what we did. Now Trump's going to give it to every kid. All right. It's kind of hard to lose when you're out there thinking this way. So this is all about, provoking people's own selfishness, their own self-interest, about projecting a better vision of the future, an optimistic vision of the future. And this stuff is just more persuasive than whatever the fuck Jerome Powell just did, or whatever Mark Carney did yesterday with his grocery graph. And he says he needs a third hand to explain a fucking graph. The graph was supposed to show that inflation in food and inflation in other things was a little different. And he was trying to compensate for the inflation in food with whatever fucking public money they were going to print. So when you think of it that way, then, you can see right away where this is headed. And I'm going to continue to tell you where I think it's headed, but I just want to mention a few other people talking about Trump savings accounts. Bill Ackman here. And now, again, use this as an example of just how dexterous the kind of narrative that Trump is selling here, this populist narrative, is. Because remember, Bill Ackman was the biggest anti-Trump voice on Twitter, the most effective, most persuasive anti-Trump voice on Twitter in the 16 and 20 election cycles. Not only has Trump won him over, not only is he completely becoming kind of based and way more populist than he was before, he's also out there now helping Trump on policy. He says, a little over 5 years ago, I had an idea on how to give every newborn American a stake in capitalism. Today, President Trump made that idea a reality with Trump accounts. Thank you, President Trump. With Trump accounts, President Trump will transform the lives of millions of young Americans and their families who will learn the virtues of capitalism and compounding, one of the great wonders of the world. And indeed, you are seeing here, just like I said, it's populism versus communism. It's no longer left versus right. And how do you win these fights? How does populism, how does sovereign money and the separation of state and money, how does that affect and contribute to the psychological war of persuasion that's going on in order to realize either one of these two futures? We're seeing it very clearly right here. You're seeing a coalition built out of the wreckage of the old left and right that is completely obliterated now, you're seeing the actors come out and create a situation where you're taking direct aim at the communist worldview here. And so while Trump is doing this, and there's many, Cernovich also out talking about what a great idea it is, and showing how it's going to reinvigorate some parts of even gift giving. 20 years ago, grandparents would often give treasury bonds in paper form as Christmas gifts. Maybe the Trump administration could print something out symbolically where you give a piece of paper to the grandkids when a contribution is made to Trump accounts. Indeed, you're going to see all of these things because this gets into a lot of the deep psychological motivations that are out there. And this is way more persuasive than almost any system out there. So meanwhile, the same day you've got Trump offering a separation of money and state, a invigoration of our understanding of capitalism in America, starting with childhood. You've also got Mamdani, of course, translation of this whole thing, get ready to pay out of your ass for free stuff. Here he's blaming the last mayor, we have no money, fiscal crisis at the scale of the Great Recession, so blah, blah, blah. Mamdani out there doing what we all, don't be surprised, right? Now, even at that, you got to also give both Mamdani and, I guess, Trump credit in the end, because when Mamdani came around and he started saying affordability, I was like, you better hope that he's, someone else is feeding him these lines, because if this is Mamdani himself, you got a fucking problem, because this is a very persuasive line, and this is exactly what would stop the capacity for Trump's populist revolution from winning if they really own that brand affordability and really prioritize that affordability question. And so when I saw Trump just totally steal it, and now he's all about affordability, he's been going out doing all this stuff, you can really start to see the populist streak and the affordability part of the plan come into full view. And so not only is, Trump doing that affordability stuff, let me find it. Here's just a great example of something you just can't see any other political leader do. It's not possible, right? Let me see where it is. Oh yeah, here it is. So when you see Trump in this battle now, like I said, it's a battle of hearts and minds, it's a battle of systems, it's a battle of incentives, of persuasion. He's out there, he had the great line, affordability, Trump stole it, he's after it, because there's no way a populist can't own the affordability question, especially if he's against a communist. And so here's Trump yesterday, he did the announcement, this is the day before his announcement on the Trump savings. Here he is in Iowa, right, of all places. Now, how many people can do this? Mondale could do this, right? So he could do this. But there's not a lot of politicians that can do this. Go into a diner and just chat with people. Nixon could have done this. Reagan, not so much. The Bushes, no way. Obama, it would be fake. It would look like that. Clinton, yeah, Clinton could do this. Clinton was great in terms of this kind of stuff. So Clinton could do this. But was he as good as Trump at this? Here he goes from table to table, talking to people. And it's how you get to Trump. Trump is so in touch with his base. He's so knowledgeable about the mood swings. I saw people yesterday saying, oh, Trump pivoted on Minnesota because of the polls. Do you really fucking think Trump follows polls? You think he's like, oh shit, the polls. No, I'm sure he reads them. But Trump himself is a better pollster than any pollster that's ever been. All he has to do is have a couple of these interactions, and he can pretty much decipher what 99% of Americans want and think. And he has a unique skill in this, right? And Nick Sorter says, President Trump is going table to table at a diner in Iowa, talking to real people, engaging their needs. Keep in mind, President Trump is not out campaigning. He's not up for a re-election. Well, he is out campaigning in the sense that he's going to compete hard in 2026. So that's what's up. And that's why you can see that this communist revolution versus this populist revolution really is a game of incentives. It's a game of who can get you the most stuff in the end, because that's more persuasive. And by get you the most stuff, I don't mean just pay you off. If the path is wealth through working, wealth through this, wealth through that, then that's what it is. And the other side, stealing the money and all of the communists' ways that we're hearing right here from Mamdani, right? You're gonna have to pay more, it's so hard, we have no money. All of that stuff is, really why I think you're going to see the most important thing that comes next, which is that corrupt money, that sludge money, all of that fiat printing and all of the corruption that comes with it, that was all pumped into, really, in the end, voter corruption, which is why audits are going to be the biggest story of 2026. Forget about all the stuff with Minnesota. Remember why they were there in the first place. It was the corruption. It was the fraud. It was the Ilhan Omar stuff. It was all of that. And so ultimately, as Trump fights the war with money on that end, and with energy, and with savings accounts, and with Bitcoin proliferating, and with stable coins weaponized abroad to deal with the fucking Danish banks and all these other fucking losers, then you're going to see the domestic plan coming home, which is the audits of the corruption, of the vote rigging and the vote buying, and all of the juiced fiat games that were played. And remember, this is who they're going to get, right? If things keep spiraling out of control, eventually it ain't going to be JD Vance. It's going to be this fucking guy, Eric Prince. And here's Eric Prince saying the plans with all of the money to go after all of the illegal money first. And then that would be the easiest way to understand this corruption, to hit President Trump's mass deportation numbers and preserve the republic, send bank compliance officers after illegal accounts. Not only will this push people towards Bitcoin, even the criminals, we like the criminals too, right? And whoever is trying to do all this stuff, it's going to push them all there. You're going to see, indeed, the real story of this is that this ends up hitting the voter rolls. And it's why you saw this big news story yesterday. FBI currently executing a search warrant related to the 2020 election at a Fulton County election office. Trump, I think, has been hinting for a while. They have proof of what happened in Georgia. We're finally going to get a simple version of it. Tom Luongo here is saying, think of the Trump administration is going to slow down after rolling up the Minneapolis mafia. Think again, think Patton, think 5 fronts simultaneously. World War III, again, a psychological and economic war. People have been stealing your money in order to vote for giving themselves more money. And that's what's been going on, and it looks like they're caught. Here's the Fulton County lady yesterday talking about the search warrant. The jig is up and she knows it. Body language is terrible here. You can see that the hoax is falling apart in real time.
Inside of here, 700 boxes. The first warrant that they gave was incorrect legally, like they didn't follow the right procedure. They went back and they fixed it, and they came back, and now they are actually collecting the boxes. They are in the chain of command in Fulton County is that once they are archived, they become the possession of the clerk of Superior Court, which is Shay Alexander. She is here and she is with them inventorying everything that they're taking. We, the commissioners, the chairman, the county attorney, are trying to figure out a legal plan as to maybe an injunction, a motion to quash. We don't know yet. We're trying to figure it out. We're getting all kinds of legal advice to stop this, because once they have the ballots, how do we then turn around and do something different when they've already got their hands on it? So this is an attempt to take your vote away. This is all about November 2026, about the primary on May 19th and then the November election. He does not want the midterm elections to take away his power. So he's trying to create chaos. So this is what he does. Chaos in Minnesota, chaos in Fulton County. We are a target. Protect your vote at all costs. I'm telling you, everybody always says your life depends on it. Oh, your life does depend.
Vote your way out, guys. Your votes. We need our votes. Give me the votes. And it gets worse. It gets worse. Apparently, according to Emerald Robinson here, former Davinian exec Eric Coomer has admitted to working with foreign actors in the 2020 election. Per court records, he was deposed yesterday. looks like we're finally going to get some form of narrative closure on 2020, which is great, and simultaneous to that, you had a lot of discussion yesterday because of this on the SAVE Act, which is why I'm ready to make the prediction, and I believe I'm going to be right. I believe the 2026 midterms are a complete and total wash for the Democrat Party. I don't think they survive. You know why I don't think they survive? You got to do the math on some of this, right? Let me show you some of the math. So here's Mike Lee saying 2 years ago, I teamed up to introduce the SAVE Act to keep non-citizens from registering to vote. We're filing legislation this week to add voter ID to to keep non-citizens from voting in Save America. The reason why I think this is so important is you got to actually run the numbers to see how bad the corruption is. Do you want to hear something crazy? I think with just voter ID requirements, states like Oregon are actually Republican. Here, Oregon caught with 800,000 ineligible voters on their rolls, now being purged after a Judicial Watch lawsuit. For context, Kamala won Oregon by 321,000 votes. If SAVE Act passes, if you have a voter ID system, if Trump continues to win on the economy and we get energy plants built and our electricity is up, and if he prints the US dollar like fucking crazy between now and then and goes full debasement, and he said it yesterday, he said, I don't care if the dollar is down. I don't care. It's doing great, he said. If those things happen, I don't believe the Democrat Party ever walks again. I think they're done. Now, I do believe you'll have two parties again at one point in our future, but they won't be called Democrat Party. I think the brand after this, after all this, after Minnesota, after January 6th, after all the hoaxes, after all of this stuff, I think it's done. I don't think it can come back from this. If you lose Oregon, if Oregon electoral college votes go to the Republicans, whether J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or Eric Prince, they can't survive that. And I think California is going to be worse. I think California is still a red state, if not for the cheating vote system. So, and then the other good news, right? This is an unrelated story, but just to show you how close things are coming to this pure populist versus communist, bottom-up versus top-down architecture, one of the distorting factors that has existed within all of that over the years was corporations as well. Remember, corporate, if you understand Latin history or the etymology of the word corporation, you'll know the word in French, for example, for your body is your corps, right? Your corps, and it's spelled C-O-R-P, right? Your body. So that's why incorporate, right? Corporal punishment, right? It's all about physical, your embodiment. And so a corporation has always been a way to create a legal entity that could take responsibilities and obligations and enter into a contract. So it corporates, in a legal sense, a person, because only people can enter into contracts. So you create a legal person in order to create a contract that can take on responsibilities and obligations. And like I said, enter into consent, express consent, and enter into a contract, a legally binding contract. Because, in law, a contract has qualities, right? Consent between two people and all these things. It's not just random, right? So, I guess you could say good news, and the proof that we're headed to this populism, the proof that we're in store for a complete recalibration is corporate culture, right? Corporations themselves almost vanishing and disappearing from all of this, because corporations were another battlefield that prevented a bottom-up kind of sovereign individual system. It helped promote communism, weirdly, ironically, right? A top-down structure that didn't work, that workers felt vulnerable in, or felt that it could substitute sovereignty with, right? That corporate allegiance was a substitute for sovereignty. because it guaranteed your future. It was self-preservational to be part of a company. That was enough to skew a lot of the political conversation in America. It didn't mean it fell any one way, but all communism is framed in terms of the evil corporate boss, right? So the corporate hierarchy and the corporate relationships were the antithesis of communism in this fake prison of two ideas world, in the fake right-wing, left-wing world. But now that it's expressly about bottom-up versus top-down, not about different corporate policies and what flavor of top-down do you like, right? Which is what Republican versus Democrat in the past was all about. If you really embrace the American system of government, if you really embrace the bottom-up system that the founding fathers created, that Trump is trying to perpetuate, if you really enjoy the same populism that Trump displayed in Iowa, what you're going to see is a clear vector out of corporate structures that are top down, and it won't be communism anymore. Communism will not be the natural antithesis. You know, the pathetic view of Republicans as like, you know, corporate shills and all that stuff. That's what helped drove people to the Democrat Party psychologically. No one wants to be a corporate shill, right? No one wants to be subject to the humiliation of a corporate leash and a boss. I mean, I've never really had a corporate job in my life for that reason. It was something that I was a bit allergic to. So I've been existing in this world of individuality and sovereignty for quite a while, and it's what led me to Bitcoin all those years ago. But I don't know if you noticed yesterday, Amazon of all companies, Amazon, like how much fucking money does Amazon make? How much trash tokens do those fucking people make over there? Right? It's absurd. And good for them. I'm a big fan of the app. Trust me, it's one of the greatest apps ever made because I can still use it. It's not like an Apple bullshit changes every 2 minutes. I don't even know what's going on. I can't find shit in Apple anymore in the systems. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. But the Amazon app works great. I've never, ever found myself like, where's this on the Amazon app? Never. It just, everything's where you want it to be. Everything works. It's great. And you know, I'm mostly a fan of Jeff Bezos. I think he's going to be a great Bitcoiner one day. We hope. Anyway, it's up to him. He can do what he wants. But I don't treat him like an enemy. That's for sure. But so they fired a bunch of people yesterday, like a lot of people. And I think the number is 107. No. Anyway, fired a lot of people. Here's Sightbringer with a really great post on it. He says, this is the quiet death of corporate civilization, a disintegration. Remember, a corporation is to incorporate. The opposite is to disintegrate, right? One worker at a time, one layoff at a time, one elite at a time. The whole structure was built on a lie that loyalty to a firm could substitute for sovereignty. That's where I got that line from, right? That loyalty to a firm would guarantee your perpetuation, and it was a good trade-off with your sovereignty. What I'm saying is populism versus communism makes this overt, whereas left-wing, right-wing did not. Left-wing, right-wing was really just like, which kind of corporate boss do you want in your top-down structure? That's not what's happening. And so here, that your identity could be tethered to a job, that safety could be outsourced, that competence was protection, that value flowed from hierarchy. That lie is gone and everyone feels it. No one says it. The real revelation isn't that jobs are unstable. It's that the entire concept of the job was a historical anomaly, a 20th century aberration built on post-war abundance, state-backed capital flow, and cultural consensus. That was the World War II consensus that I was mentioning before. We're returning to the default, networked tribes, which is the Nakamoto consensus, transactional alliances, mobile skill sets, bare survival wrapped in branded HR language. There is no ladder, there is no home, there is no team. There is only leverage. Your cash buys you time, your narrative buys you access, your signal buys you demand, your skills keep you moving. This is about the end of the firm as a meaningful vessel for human purpose. And most people still don't see it. But the ones who do are already building outside of the walls, which is what all the Bitcoiners are doing. And it has no choice but to happen, because all of the systems are buckling at the same time, and we're Maduro was taken alive. He knows stuff, just saying, no, the voting stuff, we're going to find out. We're going to find out all of this stuff. You know they stole it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Better front run those babies before they own everything. Driving towards the 200-week moving average at 58K. That's our space drop. No Fauci, just our net worth. Yeah, we're going to be okay. I always knew we had to get out of this. We had to get to the golden age, because the narrative we already spent the narrative of nation state adoption. That's already now priced in, and it's not enough. The true next step is when we really start building breakaway civilizations. It's when Trump explicitly announces his Greenland plans, which are going to be just development, right? You can claim most of Greenland by building shit. It's back to old school colonialism now, and that just means use it. And so I think he's gonna twist Bezos, Bill Gates, all these other fiat sludge people that benefited from this system. He's going to force them to go build shit up in Greenland. And I think Facebook's going to build something up there, and they're going to put people up there. I think they're going to do it in Canada too, in the Arctic. I think they're going to get there. You're going to be able to travel right to Alaska along the top. And what you're going to get up there are pioneers, are sovereign individuals, are energy systems. And when one of these freedom cities, because here's the thing, I looked at the hold on one second. I looked at the agenda for his first year, right? And I said, well, he's got domestic troubles for at least a year. He's got the mentally ill to deal with that are not going to be able to accept what just happened. He's going to have to manage that for the next little while. So the way for him to go forward is to get through all this trouble. I knew he had to subordinate the Federal Reserve. I said that's going to take a while. And so we're getting to the subordination of the Federal Reserve part now, and we're getting through all this US aid stuff, and we're finally getting close to the mark. And once he's through that, once it gets to the USA 250, once you get to the 250th birthday, which is what I think he's really aiming for, I think he's trying to tie up this whole golden age narrative. Once the golden age narrative really starts getting implemented and Trump really starts selling the golden age narrative, and he starts selling freedom cities, and you start seeing a Bitcoin citadel. I mean, we're going to see a Bitcoin fucking citadel this year, a Bitcoin citadel. Now, it's not going to get built, but you're going to see it. You're going to see the pieces of a Bitcoin citadel. And that is where the next enthusiastic run comes from, because Bitcoin citadels aren't just we got a power plant and we're all out there lifting weights. It's not exactly that. It's the full unleashing of P2P systems. It means no more publishers, no more movie studios. It means markets without third parties. When we say untrusted third parties in the white paper, I'm talking about all of the middlemen. Once that starts happening, in my world of publishing books and art and culture and entertainment, you're going to see Bitcoiners dominate these fields. And do you know what the appetite out there is for entertainment? It's maximum. We're so sick of these. Look at this fucking He-Man trailer that went out the other day. He-Man, all they did was make a little joke about he, him, and people love it. It looks like just a plain old action movie. And it's not even going to be great, but it's going to be, in contrast to all the shitty woke stuff that's out there, it's going to have huge audiences. Now, if it's shit, it's shit. It's not going to work. But I think they get the gist, and I think it's going to be one of the first non-woke movies that makes fun of gender stuff and pronouns and all that. And it is He-Man. Like, you got to have fun with the gender pronouns. So, and that's just a taste of what's coming with AI and all this stuff. You're going to see Bitcoiners succeed at levels that we can only imagine. And once you have Bitcoiners at the top of the heap when it comes to success and persuasion and influence, that's what's going to drive the next market. It's not just like, how much Bitcoin did this company buy and how much Bitcoin does America really have and all that. That's already baked in now, unfortunately. There's more to it than that, of course. There's still a lot of enthusiasm that can come from that. But This is a narrative war. It's a narrative game. And so, in my mind, what we've got with Trump and populism and the subordination of the Federal Reserve and all of these great subjects is, I think, one of the most interesting years we'll ever see in our lives. And I believe it's going to see the end of the Democrat Party. I mean, the legit end. The end. Can't survive. And once we get to that point, once we get there, you're going to see the enthusiasm of the golden age really take over, and you're going to understand, and people are going to understand Bitcoin's role in the golden age and energy finance and energy abundance and low IQ savings and a return to the mastery of craft and a return to refinement and aesthetics and everything we want to see from a golden age. It's right there. And so that's why I said the other day when I saw Trump release his golden arch, victory arch or wherever they call it, on the way to Arlington Cemetery out of DC, and saying DC doesn't have a great victory arch and we need it. It's going to be the World War III victory arch, and it's going to signal the actual golden age. And that's why it's going to be made of gold, and it's going to be great, and it's going to help people understand where things are headed in the future. Yeah. So there you go. All right, team. I'm running out of battery a little bit here. One second. I'm going to head down to the dinner before I miss it. I don't want to miss the dinner. I'm about to be at the very end of it. So I'm going to be finishing a few minutes. Oh, I forgot to look at my beautiful rumblers as they're here. Vote harder, Lance says. Good morning, Count and Crew. Lee J. Doomberg predicts new scum in... Doomberg's retarded. Doomberg is one of the dumbest people going. Like, don't worry about Doomberg, Lee J. God help us. It's not happening. There's literally, I can almost guarantee it, there's no way Gavin Newsom is going to be the president of the United States. And I know it could sound like people laughing at Trump in the old days. He doesn't have the game. He just doesn't have it. It's just not possible. If you're working on a world of persuasion and self-interest and wealth, he's got nothing. He's got nothing. He's got to compete about building wealth for people, not giving people handouts. If you have voter ID, not only does Gavin Newsom not win in 2028, no Democrat wins. Not even close. Not even close. So Doomberg, look, all you have to know about Doomberg is, what does he think about Bitcoin? Ask yourself, what does Doomberg think about Bitcoin? And you don't need to know more than that. That's why I made the most important factor for determining whether or not you're an NPC sludge person being your Bitcoin origin story. You can have any origin story, but if you know about Bitcoin and then have there's only about 5 or 6 reactions people have to Bitcoin. He's very clearly in the credentialist model, and his worldview just has never incorporated what's going on with Bitcoin. How can you actually predict the world and what's going to happen if you don't use the psychological engine of Bitcoin as part of it? You'll never understand incentives. You'll never have a way of understanding what's happening in the future. Now, I could be wrong about Bitcoin, just like we could all be wrong about Bitcoin, but I don't think I am. I think it's too late. We're completely on schedule. Doomberg's predictions are nowhere near as accurate as Bitcoiners. I mean, we are way ahead of this game. So Doomberg, now I like some of his stuff. Don't get me wrong. I was a subscriber before. He's retweeted me. He's sent me a note saying, thanks for covering my blog. He's no offense. No offense to Doomberg in that way. I just think he's a typical, is a puss. Yeah, he said he would give up his BDC if government made it illegal. Yeah, no, he's done way stupider shit than that, man. He's done way dumber shit. I mean, he's been off X because Elon has been throttling him. He doesn't even go on X anymore. Like, what are you talking about, Doomberg? and like the fucking squawk thing. Oh, you're so controversial that we can't, you got to use this fucking voice thing. No, I'm all for people staying anonymous. So I'm not trying to call him out. I don't know what's going on in his life. If he wants to stay anonymous, that's absolutely his right. But do all the math here, right? At a certain point, you're dealing with someone who's, good at writing a newsletter. Okay, newsletter, sure. Write a newsletter. Do I think Spaces protocol has a role in replacing DNS? Not sure, Curious Bitcoin. Not sure. Thank you, Nolan. I love your wisdom and humor. Thanks for being around, Wisteria. Thanks for the compliment. Glad to see you back. I didn't know this. Many of you didn't know we were not broadcasting. We've been around. We only really took a break until from the election until about January of last year, and then I spun up the Rumble channel, Bitcoin on Rumble. So go subscribe to Bitcoin on Rumble for everyone out there on YouTube. This was just an attempt because I was kind of wondering what was going on. I couldn't quite figure out the comments, and so I said, well, why don't I just start seeing what people are saying on YouTube? I'm not so afraid of getting kicked off of YouTube anymore. That fear feels no longer necessary. So there you go. That's what we got. What time is it there? It's nighttime right now. Yeah, it's almost 9 o'clock. That's why I got to get down. 9 p.m. Next show, Sending Plane. No show tomorrow for Friday. I'm flying home on Wednesday next week. Maybe a show on Monday. I'll let you know. But I leave Tuesday night, so I don't think I can do a show Tuesday night because I got to get all the way to Abu Dhabi to leave Tuesday night. And I'm flying straight through Wednesday, so definitely no show Wednesday. Thursday for sure. And a long time no see, CB Van says. Yeah, long time. Long time no see on YouTube, CB Van. Here on the end of the Democrat Party, Noha says. Yeah, I am ready. Nothing succeeds like success. You got it. Yeah. You could be pretty cozy in Greenland with a small modular nuke. Exactly. Yeah. I got a notification that Bitcoin was down and hit the smash buy. Yeah, there you go. I am buying. Where did Newsom? I'm a subscriber. Didn't see that one. John Cena 19 says stack harder. Oh my God, I made it. God help us. Keep winning. We're gonna keep winning. Unbelievable show again today. Thanks, Lance 2002. There we go. I'm with you, Nolan. His model is that Kamala lost by -2 and that Newsom can make that up. Nope. Nope. No way. It's a zero. 12 hours different. No, 7:48. It's yeah. No, it's not 7:48. Oh no, yeah, it's not 9 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock. What am I talking about? From California, just to be clear. More like Noster, replacing email. Like and subscribe. Indeed. We want Monday. I'll try JJ Fox for sure. I will definitely try. Looking forward to seeing you next week on Monday. Have a great time in Dubai. I sure will. Thanks. Go Refuel. How's the food? Food is great, Chef Zero. Really good. Yeah, really good. I'm a big fan of the Middle Eastern flavors. I'm not sure what we're having tonight. I think it's just eat anywhere you want, but the restaurants start closing, so that's why I got to get down. Safe travels. Thanks for giving us a few shows this week. You're happy to do it, T-Dog. Yo. Never trust the YouTube platform. No, I don't. I'm going there because I'm getting the comments off of this, and there hasn't been a great user flow. So for folks in YouTube who don't know, I switched from StreamYard to Restream, and I haven't quite figured out the coordination with Rumble the way I would like, because StreamYard, I had all the comments coming in very easily, and I don't quite have that this time. And so it's been about 2 weeks now that I'm trying to figure out how to do Restream in a comfortable way, acknowledging all of these great chats that we get going on in Rumble, because Rumble chat is, it's the Rumble chat is a lot bigger and happening. So we love the active chat. So this is just about trying to find a way to get more chat and easier interplay. When I'm back in my studio in Barbados, I'll have I might have a solution. My producer is talking in the comments here. I might have a solution, which is to sidecar a iPad. And if I sidecar an iPad, I believe I can pipe the comments into the screen. I'm going to try that when I go back. I don't want to do it now because it's too much bandwidth. I need a hard wire and then all of that, because my iPad's going to suck out of the Wi-Fi and it's going to probably lag everything, and it's probably a waste of bandwidth. So I'll do that in a couple of days. Say something and play catch up with them. Anything and get canceled on YouTube. You'll do nothing and get canceled. I know, don't worry. I've been canceled enough. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. You're about to see the logo. And then after the logo, there's going to be a screensaver. And the screensaver is going to say, thanks for coming. But I want to tell you, from me personally, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all tomorrow. Not tomorrow, pardon me. I will see you all maybe Monday. Definitely not Tuesday. Definitely not Wednesday. But Thursday for sure. And Friday for sure. So our travels will be over. So my producer is ready. I'm going to hit the transition, and then the screen is going to come up, and I'm doing it right now. Again, thanks for coming, everyone. Peace.